instead of a technique this week, we're going to, well, it's sort of a technique, isn't it? We're doing a technique breakdown of a lovely little throw by duck under from Kaynan versus Rodolfo Vieira.
Yeah, it's a great match, actually, isn't it? And a really good use of a powerful technique that we're both fans of. I like a strong collar tie, and it gets put to use in really good effect in this match.
Yeah. I say we're just going to do breakdown of the sort of the one technique, but would definitely highly recommend going to watch the match because Kaynan's back control as well during this match is lovely. Like, go straight into the back control that we actually discussed in a previous episode with the crossing the feet and pinching the knees at the hip, as well as like we covered it in the Galvao match as well against Palhares. And it seems like it's a Atos thing now, that back control, as I think a lot of the Atos players use it because they sort of see the power of it. You don't get your points for it, but I think I'd much sooner get the control from this back control than get the points for the two hooks.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think there was, before he competed in this match against Vieira, there was an IBJJF tournament. I can't remember whether it was gi or no gi, but he essentially ran through everybody in his division with that back control, and then working it up to like reverse triangles, if I remember correctly, using that arm trap sequence that we've talked about on some of the other videos as well, and basically working his way up the body with that. Interesting as well, similar sort of setups to what Gordon Ryan was doing in the ADCC with the back control, and not necessarily always looking for the hook, the double hooks, and just utilising the single hook and the pinch on the hips. Very strong position, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a lot more difficult. I would say there's less ability for your opponent to move inside your hips with that position than there is with the traditional two hooks.
Oh, 100%. Like, the hips are secured once they're in that position. And I think unless you've actually experienced it or played with it, it's very hard to understand the control of it, because traditionally you get taught two hooks in or body triangle, nothing else for the back. Whereas playing around with the sort of outside elevator for like a judo style hook, or this sort of, I'm going to call it hip pinch just for the sake of it, but this sort of hip pinch seems to be a lot more effective.
Yeah, and there's a good interchangeability between that and that outside elevator as well. And, you know, what kind of, when you just look at it on face value, if you've not been in that position before, you think, well, why can't I just put my foot down and shrimp out? Well, that's exactly what that outside elevator is doing. You need the foot that's being hung up in the air. You know, you're kind of being hung up by your hamstring in the back of your knee. That's the leg that you'd be putting down to shrimp out. So it takes away a hell of a lot of your opponent's movement. It's a really good, strong technique. So I recommend going back and watching the video where we discuss that technique.
Definitely. We've got a lot of great content on the back control as well. So I'd recommend going back and watching all of our back control videos as well. But without further ado, should we have a look at the technique for today?
Absolutely.
We're going to look at first, before we actually get into the technique, is I want everyone to sort of, who goes back and watches this match, to really watch how strong Kaynan is with these clinches. He's not just sort of taking a grip for the sake of taking a grip. He's got the grip with intention. So before he's even gone for the technique, Rodolfo's on the back foot, and he's also sort of like getting tired. Like, having somebody that size and looking like someone who's that strong hanging off your neck is exhausting.
He's got clubs for hands, hasn't he? He's an absolute monster. And,
it's like big ham hocks just sort of clubbing the back of your head.
100 kilos plus of intentional weight hanging off your neck is a lot of strain on your back.
Yeah.
And, but what he's also doing as well is not letting him get any relief on it. Just persistence with attacking on it, and you know, it opens up the opportunity that he's looking for.
Definitely. So what we'll do, we'll play through it just the once, and then we'll sort of go back and we'll break it down piece by piece for everyone to watch. So let's see, you can see here they're both going for the collar ties, and we're not going to sort of stop it until we've seen the technique. but there's a lot of small things happening prior to that entry that Kaynan's doing really to make the entry that much easier for him, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where on face value of it, it looks quite simplistic. You might often see a lot of guys in the gym doing this sort of exchange where they're kind of just both attacking for collars, but with no real intention. They don't really know what they're looking for. They might be looking for a snap down, or maybe just to make it uncomfortable for your opponent. But it's all that those micro bits of control, and like what we talked about before as well, about controlling the top of the head and the crown of the head rather than just cupping on the base of the neck. That's what makes this position a lot more uncomfortable and opens up a lot more opportunities for attacking, like it does here.
Yeah, definitely. Because if we play forward a little bit, when he gets that first collar tie, you can see he's got the back of the neck secured, and the hand that sort of goes for the duck under and setting up the pushing the wrist across is on the crown, and you can see straight away the angle of Rodolfo's spine, like his head's ahead of his toes.
Yeah, he's got a lot of weight forward. His upper back's rounded. He's not in a very athletic position there at all.
No.
He's not got weight planted effectively to duck under and out. Even if he did, Kaynan's got control in both directions of his neck. So whichever way he does decide to try and duck under, Kaynan's going to be able to have that ability to control in either direction and kind of either redirect or just adjust his position. But the way that he's been able to break down his posture means that he's not in a position to drive forward or actually initiate any effective defense.
No. And it's almost begging him to sort of create that pullback reaction, which when timed right is when Kaynan goes for the duck under or Throwby with the arm as well.
Yeah, it'd be that classic sort of setup for baiting the reaction for your opponent to pop up to do a blast double or shoot down to a single, which Hinger also does a really good job of, who's another Atos player. So it's obviously something that they work well there over at Atos to be able to implement in these high-level matches against the top guys.
No, definitely. And saying that as well, this sort of throws back to the Galvao-Penna match as well, with Galvao's clubbing of Felipe Penna.
Very effective. It's tiring. It's exhausting. That match was a really high-paced match, and Galvao put it on him.
100%.
There was a lot of aggression there.
I think there was a bit of an exchange between them, weren't there, beforehand?
Yeah, they don't like each other, do they?
No.
Do you think Galvao was sticking up for Gordon Wright?
When?
I'm taking the piss.
Oh, right.
Because they've not had the best relationship in the past either, have they? So maybe Galvao was coming out to kind of like get a bit of redemption for Gordon.
Oh, I think Galvao's come out to make a statement being like, I beat the guy who beat you twice. Because that double leg through the table.
Yeah, it was more akin to some WWE action, wasn't it? Than
absolutely brutal. And I think no matter what anybody says about that's why Galvao won because he was injured his ribs. For me, Galvao was winning that fight, even up until that point. Yeah,
the unique point scoring aspects and the way that they judge the ADCC matches, that's how you've got to come out and play.
Yeah, no, definitely.
If it's going to be on the stand-up and you're going to try and win on the stand-up exchanges, that's how you've got to play it. It's not jiu-jitsu, it's grappling, it's wrestling.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand that sometimes, do they?
No. Even though jiu-jitsu guys do end up kind of dominating the tournament, more so in recent years than previous years, it still is in the favour of strong wrestling and being strong from the top and penalising pulling guard.
Which I think is a fair point.
Yeah, but that style also has a really good transfer over into these other more classic jiu-jitsu style matches and like submission grappling. It's super effective here, and I think we're going to go into the breakdown now of how this duck under works well and how he gets the setup of it from this position. But I mean, that just looking at that position there where we freeze framed it, you really don't want to be on that position in terms of a defensive side of stuff, like just weak posture, and that's not me knocking Vieira's ability to wrestle. It's just he's just doing such a good job of being shut down.
It's almost a nod to Kaynan's effectiveness in his clinch work as opposed to knocking Vieira's clinch work. It's sort of because we all know who Vieira is. We all know what he's achieved in the sport. So for Duarte or Kaynan to be able to do this to someone of Vieira's caliber almost shows how good Kaynan is. But I think the key details that, especially that I noticed with this, is firstly this bottom hand here and the way it's cooked around the neck. So it's not just sort of flat on the back of the neck. He's almost got that gooseneck grip around it. So he's got his fingers in the side of the neck. He's got his palm on the back of the neck. And it's almost like just a hook attaching himself.
It'd be interesting to see what's going on from the front here as well, because you could probably imagine that it's not just a straight arm that he's going to be bearing his pressure onto him. So he's going to have that forearm driving into his chest and basically using it as a fulcrum point to pull him down over.
Oh, 100%. And I can imagine once he sort of springs back up for Vieira, that having that hook there makes it easier just to almost pass him over, which we'll see when we get the clip up further on. But I think also as well, watching what this hand does, as they both play a crucial part in the technique. The top hand passes it over, doesn't it? And the bottom hand manipulates the spine.
So another important thing to potentially think about in terms of this as well is like Kaynan's gi game is excellent as well.
Yeah.
And this is a really great way to set up a similar sort of pass and back take in the gi. So we kind of hold in around the back of the collar where he's got his thumb in now is a great way of controlling the collar in the gi as opposed to a no gi. And the way that he grabs the wrist and passes it over, you could easily use the sleeve control instead of a wrist control and set it up exactly the same way. The only difference being you'd have a lot superior grip on the collar to start pulling your opponent down if you were playing it in the gi. So I imagine, not having seen a lot of his gi footage of him doing this, but I imagine this is a game that he plays well in gi and no gi.
Oh, 100%. So we sort of play it on a bit more. We'll try and freeze it just before he goes. But you can sort of see Vieira's pulling back there now, isn't he?
Yeah, they're starting to create some space. There's some distance in there now.
And another little key thing as well, which for me is a very understated point for this kind of clinch work, is it's forehead to forehead. There's neither of them are giving each other the gap to get into the nook of the neck, whereas less experienced clinch players, I've noticed, will allow the more experienced clinch player to get into that crook of the neck and also almost be sort of cheek to cheek, as that's sort of seen as a bit of a normal position to be in. Whereas for me, having that dominant forehead control and that forehead positioning really gives you the advantage in all clinch work.
Yeah, and another point in Vieira's favour on this one as well is I don't know what exactly the height difference is between them, but Kaynan certainly looks like the bigger out of the two.
Yeah.
And to be able to retain that good posture and keep that head-to-head positioning without letting Kaynan get in. One is down to the counter clinching that he's doing and keeping a good frame in there himself, not allowing him to get the angle and capitalise on his size and get underneath and start driving on the inside of the cheek. But two, it's just that footwork and movement and kind of countering all the snap down attempts and heavy collar work that Kaynan's given out to him.
No, definitely. And I think leading up to this as well, if we take a look at the shape of Kaynan's shoulder here, he's not got his shoulders down. So he's got his shoulders like shrugged up. So it'll almost take away from the space that Vieira can actually grip hold of on the collar tie. So when we get to the actual Throwby bit, it makes that turn and pass that touch easier.
So other options from here usually, because the arm that he ends up passing when we get to it in a minute is actually the inside arm, isn't it? Where Vieira's got a more dominant control with being on the inside of the clinch. Other options for him from here would traditionally be if somebody's got you in a clinch like that to shuck them off and go into a 2-on-1 control on the shoulder, which I know is a technique that you like to do and pull off quite well.
Yeah.
But he doesn't use that. He uses the wrist pass and the duck under, which I think is there's not an ideal camera angle switch exactly when this technique happens, is this? So we're going to try and go through that and show you in as much detail as we can now. But just bear in mind that the camera angle does switch, and it's not ideal to see what we're just talking about now and how that translates over onto the other side.
There. So we try and take it back a fraction of a second. No.
It's the perfect timing for as soon as the passover comes, it changes positions, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but I think if you look at the positioning of the hands on this side, we can get a good idea of how that hand position is going to turn out when we switch positions in a second.
Yeah, definitely. Like he's still on the crown here, and it almost seems like he's pulling Vieira in even more. Like you can see Vieira's on his toes here, and his weight's traveling forward, and he's trying to sort of pull back, and the angle of Vieira's arms changed just from a few seconds ago. So he's in that shortened position. And again, like Kaynan's got his shoulders shrugged. So for anyone who's sort of played this kind of clinch work, it's very hard to control someone's with a collar tie if they've got their shoulders shrugged, because you've got a less of an avenue for your arm to travel down and sort of sit into with that collar tie.
It'll be interesting to see as well, but from this angle, pausing there, what that slight distancing away from the body without Vieira being able to pull Kaynan in super tight is, it opens up a little bit of a gap for Kaynan to get in underneath and throw the arm over. Yeah. If we look at the positioning that we were talking about before, with using the clinch to bear on the chest and pull them in, that's not quite there anymore. So there is a really small little gap where Kaynan can probably get in underneath and initiate that pass over.
Yeah. And then once we get to the next bit here where he's throwing him, so you can see Kaynan's gone with the collar tie, and he's grabbed it with his outside hand to pass it across his body. But as we can see before, as we mentioned before, he's got the strong grip around the neck as well, hasn't he? And he's not just got a shallow grip. He's got palm on the back of the neck and fingers hooked around the other side of the neck. So as his body moves, Vieira's body's got no choice but to follow the direction of that he's being pulled in.
Yeah, so he's doing a great job of pulling him into that space that he's just opened up. You know, he's made a space for Vieira to fall into, and he's doing a good job of pulling him into it with that strong collar tie.
Definitely. And you can sort of see where this gap here, he's moved his body in that way to grip the arm to then pass it over the body as well, hasn't he? Which, personally, I've not played this kind of duck under, but it seems like a very effective way to sort of play it.
And a lot of the positioning off that was coming off what we were talking about before in terms of footwork. And something that just watching this, people who haven't played this game won't get a good idea of, is feeling your opponent's weight. And when they're starting to make a shift forward, when you've got the balance, when they're starting to readjust. And that really is the key to initiating the attacks on the takedowns, isn't it? It's not just all about you initiating the pull on your opponent. You've got to kind of wait for the right time for them to be heavy on the feet or light on the feet and then capitalize.
Yeah, definitely. And as we'll try and play it second by second here, because it's not a slow motion part. But from the Throwby straight away, you can see Kaynan hooks onto this hip after he's cleared the hand out of the way. And for me, the important detail here is using this arm here to pull the hips in towards him, but also that chest pressure in here to capture the shoulder at this point, so that he can't recover that arm and try and re-pummel back in to then square back up.
So he's done one of those, the awesome key principle of jiu-jitsu, which is creating space when he wants it, and then when he wants it back, he takes all that space away from Vieira and makes it really difficult for him to square back up. And with the opposing pressures that he's got on the neck, turning him in one direction, and the pressure that he's going to start pulling on the hip, kind of starts to corkscrew his body and initiate that pull down to the ground with the force that he's created in both directions.
And also, it doesn't help that with his footwork as well, he's going to jump around the back. He doesn't just sort of circle and run around the back. He jumps around, which causes Vieira to fall as soon as he gets it. So he's not just running around and trying to catch the back. He's trying to take his feet off the ground as well and circling. Once he gets that bike, he jumps up onto the back.
And a good thing he does before he does make that jump to the back to get this hip control position is uses the gap in the legs on the stand-up position to throw that first hook in before he throws the other one in over the top.
Yeah. See if I can find a point.
Rather than wait until the point where they're already at the ground, he's already got that initial hook in before Vieira gets his hands down onto the mat and the ground game starts to be played.
Yeah, so he almost sort of like hops that in the bottom hook first, doesn't he?
Yep.
So he uses his footwork. The referee's in the way here, but if we go back a couple of seconds, if you watch it, that inside leg gets inserted straight away. And he's still got the necktie here. He's still got the hip tie and the underhook. And also, I'd imagine that rather than throwing that second hook over the top, his hip pinch and his knees are just clamping together now to secure those hips. And I think the momentum that is created by circling around and just jumping on is just causing Vieira to be unable to stay on his feet there.
So he's done a really good job of the things that we talk about in the videos all the time. Is one, creating space and then taking space away. But now he's got control of the whole spine. He's got control of the neck and he's got control of the hips. And if you want to control your opponent, the more of that you can take control of, the better. And to put the cherry on top of the cake here, he's also inserted a hook. So now he's got control of the legs. So the three most important things that you can have control of over your opponent in a match, he's managed to get them already.
Yeah. And in less than a minute as well, which is very impressive. So we'll just watch through the sequence one more time. And if anybody's got any questions regarding this technique or any further input, feel free, drop us a message, drop a comment, and we'll be happy to discuss more. But it's just a clinic of great clinch work, great footwork, and knowing where the body needs to be at the right time.
I really like that bit there where they're doing that traditional judo style footwork drill where it's that side shuffling. You know, you can imagine walking into any judo gym up and down the country where they're playing collar and sleeve ties and the side shuffling, waiting for that timing where your opponent's light on the feet to create your snap down or your sweep. And, you know, it works as well no gi as it does in gi. But it's really nice to take down.
It's a very sort of understated drill, that. And personally, I think it's a great thing to get used to. Like the footwork drill, you'll probably get some grapplers that will sort of look at it and laugh at it because, they look at the running line, doing a kata, it's not karate, this, that, and the third. But those kinds of drills will instill the movement into you. So when you do come to doing it live, you're not fumbling around trying to remember what you got to do. It's just second nature from doing the drills.
Yeah, again, I think this is another one of those things on top of just the clinch work getting overlooked. It's this side shuffling here and waiting for your opponent's weight to be in the right position to initiate the technique that people don't appreciate. On first look, it looks like something very simplistic, but there's a reason that judo guys drill it for probably 75% of the training sessions. It's the stuff that matters and it's the stuff that gets the takedowns. There's loads of great instructionals on this on YouTube, like Travis Stevens has got some great home solo drills for you to do for judo. So go and check out that sort of stuff as well if you want to figure out how to implement that into your own game. But yeah, really great use of it in a high level match with arguably two of the best jiu-jitsu guys, if not now, of certainly over the past 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And like I say, there's thankfully the Americas still got some matches going on, so we've got some new content that we can play out there. But I think for future ones, we'll try and find some UK stuff as well and start doing doing some more breakdowns.
Yeah, hit us up in the comments. Let us know you want to see any exciting matches that you've watched or any particular techniques that you've looked at and thought, I don't know what quite was going on there, and you've not had the opportunity to hear the breakdown of it. we're happy to get on that analysis, and maybe we can have a chat with the guys who pulled off the technique as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I said, make sure you go back and check the previous videos. We have covered a lot of techniques, and we've covered a lot in the previous match breakdowns as well. So if you're wanting to develop a great understanding, like, I really, really would recommend going back and just watching the breakdowns, whether it's 10 minutes, going back to it, making notes, and just trying to take away the details that you can add into your game.
Like we said earlier on, we've got a whole breakdown of Galval doing a pretty similar thing in a full match with Paul Harris, and then we've got a breakdown of me and yourself showing our different opinions of back control and using the exact same technique that Kaynan showed today. You've got a video or a technique showing the exact same hip control position. The good thing about being in this lockdown, and we're coming back into these technique review videos now, we've got a library of stuff that you can go back and check out and see our full opinion on it and how we do it.
No, definitely. But yeah, hit us up. Social medias, we are at the Grapplers Academy, coached by Sai, the Bonafide PT. The Grapplers Academy and all streaming platforms. Find the audio podcast as well as more of our video content on YouTube. But yeah, let us know what you want to see, and we'll see you next time.